Hi there, McKenna, and welcome to um, Lifestyles Matter. I use this theme for my videos because the choices we make today in life will affect our tomorrow. The things that we choose to live by on a daily basis will impact the future that we hope to live. So I use that theme. Very intentional about my lifestyle personally, and I'm still growing in it. I'm constantly growing in my choices and trying to make better choices for my life every day, changing habits. Um, just to and as we get older, we start to come in terms with mortality. Life changes. We are not going to be here forever. And as we get older, things change. Our bodies change. Our brains change. And so, how we choose to live our lives, I mean, simply, even if it's drinking more water, eating more vegetables, all those decisions, and especially getting enough sleep, all those decisions will impact our future. But we have life seasons that we have no control over. And this year, I want to focus on a subject that is very overlooked. And that subject is the subject of dying and death, especially in the face of terminal illness. In the face of terminal illness, Ecclesiastes chapter 3 says, to everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven. There is a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck what is planted. Now, even those two verses just tells you, verse 3, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones. There is a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to gain and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to be silent. That's a really good time, and a time to speak, a time to love. It says a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. So there is all these times, and we have to look at some deeper and see what did the writer mean by using certain words. But there is a time to embrace and there's a time to refrain from embracing. And oftentimes we have a good time talking about the good seasons. We love the good seasons. We love for people to embrace us all the time, no matter what we have done to those people. And a lot of times, we humanly have a very hard time even saying, I acknowledge that I really hurt this person or I really hurt that person's life and I owe it to them to make it right. No, we don't do that. We like to sweep things under the carpet and say, well, you're still hanging on to that after that many years. From a counseling perspective, I like to remind people time does not heal. Time does not heal anything because we love to say time heals, but time doesn't heal. Just because something is thrown under the carpet doesn't mean it has been healed. That's why relationships struggle. Trust is broken. And sometimes we expect people that we have betrayed to trust us instantly because we are telling them that we have changed. And then we get offended when that person doesn't give you trust right now, instantly, because trust is earned and it takes a very long time to build trust, but it can take 1 second to tear down every trust to ashes. So there's a time to refrain. And there are many people who struggle with that. What is forgiveness? What does forgiveness look like? Why did somebody say they forgave me, but they are keeping a distance? And we struggle with these things. There's a time to be born and a time to die. One day you were born, one day I was born, and one day I will die, and one day you will die. So we are here on earth for a season. Just the same way we were born. Each one of the people that has been born on this earth will face death. We enjoy when babies are born and we love to hold babies. And babies are innocent, they are lovely, they are sweet, but we don't like to face the subject of dying, even though the Bible says that we all will die. And think about it. Your great grandfather, your great great grandfather, they lived just like we, but they died and they are not here anymore. So none of us will live on this earth forever. And as a chaplain of many, many years, a hospice chaplain, walking the journey of end of life with people taught me a lot. I myself have gone through a near death experience that really humbled my heart. It is a subject that we need to talk about. It's an area of life that we need to come in terms with. How old should we be to start dealing with this subject? And my very short answer is the moment a baby is born, they've got to start dealing with this subject. Because guess what? There is people that are born and their mother dies the day they are born. You probably know someone. I know some very dear people to me that grew up without their mom. My aunt died when, especially my cousin, was a baby. She never got to know her mom. And the siblings, the little older siblings, had to grow up without a mom. And there are very many people that we can think of in that position. So we don't have to wait to grow old to talk about death. It is a subject that we should be talking about with our children. Because while some people get terminally ill and the doctor says there is nothing we can do about this anymore, there's other people who it happens quick. They didn't know. They left their house to run to the shop for milk, and something happened and they did not come back home. So, as the Bible says, death is always around us. And yet, we don't like to touch that subject because for some people, especially in Kenya, we think it's a taboo. We think if we don't talk about death, it is not going to happen. It's also easy to always see death happening to other people that are far away. Now, I've been a chaplain for very many years, clinically, hospital, but especially hospice. And I could not comprehend the death to my own until I had to walk the journey with my mother about a year ago when my mom was going through her dying process. And I just want to encourage you not to avoid this subject because the more we can talk about it, the more we can get ourselves to face it, as difficult as it is, the more helpful it gets when we face those situations and when our families are faced with those situations. So last year, I tried to go about this subject quite a few times. Last year was busy for me at many levels. School was very heavy on me, but this year is lighter. And so I look forward to actually engaging in this subject um, as I have processed grief with the death of my mother, as I have processed grief as with my dad and caring for him. He's elderly and frail. It's just brought it closer to my heart to face this subject. Especially going through it in Kenya was very shocking and surprising because I found out that in Kenya, death is a taboo. You don't mention it. And you will be um, looked down on when you face the subject of death in Kenya. They think you're crazy. For me, as a chaplain, I prayed specific prayers for my parents for very many years, walking the journey with people towards their dying process, learning all the things that go alongside the worries, the fears, the family dynamics, just all kinds of things, the medications. And so I learned a lot of things. I sat with many people. I am saying I sat because for the last probably 2 years at the least, I have not been a practicing chaplain because I was attending to my mom during her dying process as well as going to school. So for the last couple of years, I have not been a practicing chaplain. But once you are chaplain, you are chaplain for the rest of your life. So I am a chaplain and I practiced for 18 years. So in those 18 years, I learned many things. I have had the honor to sit with many people when they are taking their last breath. And I prayed for my parents because I have been involved in very peaceful death situations, very loving death situations. And while we hate death and are afraid of it, if we can get our minds around it to realize that we can never escape it, then we are there to help our loved ones especially when it's known. For example, when there's a terminal disease. When there's a terminal disease, It just means that that person that has been diagnosed with a terminal disease is going to die from that disease if it takes its full course. Now, that doesn't mean that that's the only disease that can cure that person, because with the terminal diseases, they have their symptoms, they have other things going on other than the disease itself. There's many, let's take congestive heart failure that my mom died from. There's a lot of other things that are going on with this disease, like infections and just a variety of other things, high blood pressure, that are going on with that disease. Anything else could happen. It could be like people who were sick and some got COVID and died from COVID instead of the terminal disease. Some, it's an accident. Someone has a terminal illness, end up in an accident. So when someone is diagnosed with a terminal disease, they still have a life ahead of them. And the goal is to help a person who's been diagnosed with a terminal disease to live the remaining of their life to the fullest. Unless we come to terms with death and dying, we can't be there for people when they need us the most. Our loved ones that we've loved all their lives and they've loved us all our lives. We cannot effectively be there for them. And many things that I learned in Kenya, for example, when someone is dying, when someone is actively dying, and they are taking that turn, is the time the family is renting a vehicle to push them in a vehicle to rush them to the hospital. Why? Because the system is built there so that they don't want the person to die at home because they have more questions to answer. They might, there's issues like, oh, if somebody died at home, they were killed. That is somebody who's been very slowly deteriorating from the disease. And finally, when death happens, they have family members saying the person was poisoned or the person was killed. Why? Because the death came. But this person has been progressing slowly. But even the medical people in Kenya, they don't directly tell people somebody is dying. They keep telling people, we will treat this person. This person is not dying. They'll be fine. They just need to eat more and walk more. My own mother, I watched my mother go through this. And it was the most painful thing because I couldn't even stay there as long as I wanted to. My mom wanted me there and I wanted to stay there. But it was a clash with those others around because in their opinion, they thought that I didn't care because I was trying to tell them, Mom is dying. This is what happens with this disease. This is the progression. She's not refusing to eat. Her organs are shutting down. They wouldn't listen to anything because the doctors are telling them, oh, don't mind her. She will live. She has many years ahead of her, they would say. And my mother would say, McKenna, why are they doing this to me? Can't they see I can't? And when I tried to say anything, I was the evil one. And I say this with a lot of forgiveness in my heart because I could see what was happening. But I'm going to talk about this because a lot of people are going through this in Kenya and in Africa, where the doctors don't tell people the truth. They think that it's a loving thing to keep lying to people that their loved one is going to live. when they are dying. And then their loved ones end up suffering and suffering because they are being pushed. You can walk. If you walk, your legs will gain strength. But the disease is automatically causing the body to lose muscle. And they don't get education. They don't get proper spiritual care because the spiritual care they are getting is we are going to pray until God does a miracle. But what happened to the miracle of salvation and going to heaven? When somebody is dying of a terminal disease, they are not given proper care because accepting to get proper care is basically accepting to die. But I want to tell you one thing. You don't have to accept that you will die. It will happen. No matter how much we run away from it, it will happen. So this year, I want to commit to really looking at this subject with those that are willing to dive in and explore it with me. Because at the end of the day, if we can face it, it will be better for us. It will be better for our loved ones. And I tell people one thing, my kids grew up around a hospice chaplain. So they've heard me talk about all kinds of things. And I talk to them directly about myself. I tell them what my wishes are. I'm not sick. I'm not expecting to die. I'm believing God to live, just like you are, just like anybody else. But guess what? I have no control over that. God does. So I tell my children what my wishes are. My husband, we talk about this thing openly because none of us has control over it. So we talk about it. And I would encourage you to not shy from it because at the end of the day, it's better to take care of business. And when that time comes, because it shall come. I was about to say if, but it's not if, it's when. It is gonna come one way or the other. The most peaceful people I have seen through my profession are those who have taken care of their business. Now they are not scrambling that last minute to take care of things because they have taken care of things. And I've seen people just go through a very peaceful journey. It's what I was praying for my parents. It's what I pray for myself. It is what I pray for you. And I am not praying for you to die. Hear me. I'm praying that we could come to terms with this thing that we can't run away from. For every thing in life, there is a season, a time to be born and a time to die. So this is my year, God helping me that I would like to dive into this subject more. If you haven't followed me on Anne McKenna Lifestyle Matters on my page, follow me there because I'm going to be doing a lot of work from that page. So follow me there. Let's go this journey together. I lost my page some time back and I created this page specifically because I had this subject in mind. But then my mom's situation came faster than I expected. And so it's just taken this long for me to actually get back and say, okay, between my mom's situation in 2023 and school last year that was really heavy, this probably is the time by God's grace. So join in. Let's talk about this. Let's digest it together. Um, if you have questions, I'm willing to answer. If I don't know something, I will find out for you, or I can help you process it. Um, Otherwise, do have a very blessed evening and we'll be in touch.